From the East, 26, Blake Countess from Maryland, joined by Staff Sergeant Archie Rollins. From the West, number 26, Lamar Dawson from Kentucky, joined by Staff Sergeant Willis Dillman. From the East, 27, Wayne Lyons from Florida, joined by Staff Sergeant Harold Hernandez. From the West, 27, Harvey Longy from Utah, joined by Staff Sergeant Harvey Hancock. From the East, 28, Gerard Holloman from Florida, joined by Specialist Michael Mackey. From the West, 28, Malcolm Brown from San Antonio, joined by Staff Sergeant Reedus Thomas. From the East, number 29, Miles Schuler from New Jersey, joined by Sergeant Virginia Caballero. From the West, 31, Benjamin Pruitt from Texas, joined by Staff Sergeant Jeffrey Ackerman. From the East, number 30, Miller Snyder from North Carolina, joined by Staff Sergeant John Walker. From the West, 33, Steve Edmond from Texas, joined by Staff Sergeant Darren Shaddix. From the East, 32, James Wilder from Florida, with Sergeant First Class Ron Hudson. From the West, 44, Austin Safarian from Washington, joined by Staff Sergeant Nicholas Cochran. The East, number 33, Rodney Coe from Illinois, with Sergeant Matthew McLaughlin. The West, number 46, Matthew Weil from California, Staff Sergeant John McGuire. From the East, 34, Nick O'Leary from Florida, joined by Staff Sergeant Anthony Roberti. From the West, number 50, Jake Kiefer from Wisconsin, joined by Captain Kurt Zilke. The East, number 35, Corey Moore from Georgia, joined by Staff Sergeant Rodney Hudson. The West, number 52, Riker Matthews from Utah, joined by Major Sean Watts and Major Sean Stevens. The East, 51, Brian Bobek from Illinois, joined by PFC Travis Dittmer. The West, number 55, Viliami Moala from California, joined by Sergeant Kyle Turner. The East, 52, Sterling Bailey from Georgia, joined by Sergeant First Class Antonio Cowan. The West, 56, Matthew Hargady from New Mexico, with Sergeant First Class Matthew Paulson. The East, 55, Delvon Simmons from Pennsylvania, joined with Specialist Sean Harmon. The West, 57, Tyler Johnstone from Arizona, with Sergeant First Class Charles Reeves. The East, 58, Tyler Moore from Florida, with Staff Sergeant Michael Evans. The West, 59, Jamoria Rasco from Louisiana, with Sergeant Quentin New. The East, number 63, Michael Bennett from Ohio, with Staff Sergeant Jeremiah Miner. The West, 63, Gregory Robinson from Louisiana, with Staff Sergeant Stephen Pricer. The East, number 70, Andre Walker from Ohio, sponsored with Sergeant Carlos Neris and Staff Sergeant Ernest Moore. The West, number 65, Quincy Russell from Texas, with Sergeant First Class Eric Mihal. The East, 71, Brandon Shell from South Carolina, with Staff Sergeant Tony Smith. The West, 69, Ethan Hudson from Louisiana, with Sergeant First Class Brandon Zilstra. The East, 72, Zach DeBell from Florida, with Corporal Tyler Chappelle. The West, 72, Tony Morales from Texas, with Staff Sergeant Justin Kreutzer. The East, 74, Antonio Richardson from Tennessee, joined by Sergeant Jose Aquino and Major Alfred Anderson. The West, 74, Joseph Cheek from Texas, with Specialist Larry Saleh. The East, 75, Donovan Smith from Maryland, with Sergeant First Class Wayne Wilson. The West, 76, Judah Parker from Hawaii, joined by Staff Sergeant Colin Gillian. The East, 78, Landon Turner from Virginia, with Staff Sergeant Johnny Grandel. The West, 77, Marquise Anderson from Texas, joined by Sergeant Jason Kugler. The East, number 80, Sammy Watkins from Florida, with Staff Sergeant Evan Lorardiano Pagan. The West, 78, Jordan Rigsby from California, with Sergeant Nolan Estelle. The East, number 98, Stephon Tuitt from Georgia with Sergeant James Byington. The West, number 79, Cedric Flowers from Texas with Staff Sergeant Timothy Kay. The East, number 99, Ray Drew from Georgia with Sergeant First Class Sean Purvis. The West, number 80, Kendall Thompson from Texas, joined by Sergeant Andrew Oliver. The West, number 81, Kason Williams from Washington with Sergeant First Class Daniel Brown. The West, 88, Jackson Sipley from Texas, joined by Sergeant Austin Twombly and Staff Sergeant Brandon Conger. And the West, number 99, Todd Pete from Arizona, joined by Corporal Scott Mitchell. Injured players today are from the East, number 2, Jeffrey Pagan from North Carolina, joined by Staff Sergeant Michael Sell. The West, number 75, Garrett Greenlee from Texas, joined by Sergeant First Class Philip Cianchetti. The East, number 7, Tony Stewart from Florida with Specialist Joseph Williams. The West, number 32, Brennan Scarlett from Oregon with Specialist Preston Young. And your coaches for the West, offensive coach Rob Johnson from California, offensive coordinator David Miller from Washington, Mike Jinks from Texas, and David Amon from Texas. Your East offensive coaches, Trey Dickerson from Mississippi, Drew Gordon from Pennsylvania, Robert Wiener from Florida, and Lance Scheib from Indiana. Your West defensive coaches, Tony Severino from Maryland, Robert Garrett from California, and Dave Peck from Utah. East defensive coaches, Don Smoylan from New Jersey, Mike Justice from Mississippi, and Lauren Johnson from Virginia. The head coach for the West squad from California, Mr. Bob Johnson, and the head coach for the East squad from Mississippi, head coach Lance Pogue. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2011 U.S. Army All-Star Game rosters and Army Hero Soldier.